Thank you very much, and welcome everyone to I think it's our first Committee of the Whole Rec or ARC meeting of April 29th, 2025. So before we start, I see we've got people in the back that you're probably all supporting one of these people at the front. Steve Quayle for the Moose Creek Rec Committee is going to be here shortly. He's on his way. So maybe I'll just start. And we'll just go around the table. So just go and with Bert. You do. Perfect. And we have Pierre or Craig and Pierre as our rec director. So welcome to, I think maybe some of you's first time that comes into our new council chamber. Before we start, so with a committee of the whole, it's slightly different than what a regular council meeting would be. We will be taking discussions not only with the panel, so we will be, if there's any questions, we're allowed to go in the back, and but hopefully if we can deal up front and then work our way to the back so that we're not here all night. There's only 3 mics that can be on at once. So if everybody turns on their mic, if you're wondering why yours is not turned on, it's because so once you're done talking, you can just put your mic off to give the opportunity. So the only one is, I guess, mine gets to stay on. So at the main reason why we're here. So I will, before we even start, or did you want to call the meeting to order and then we'll go through the thing. So Madam Clerk, if you can call this meeting to order at 6:02.
Be it resolved that this committee of the whole meeting now open at 6:02 p.m. moved by Councillor Shane, second by Councillor Bajelli.
Thank you. All in favor? Motion's carried. Moving to the adoption of the agenda.
Be it resolved that the agenda be approved as presented, moved by Deputy Mayor Densham, second by Councillor McDonald.
All in favor, or sorry, any discussion or questions on the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Moving on to adoption of our previous minutes of September 17th, 2024.
Be it resolved that the following minutes be approved as presented. Committee of the whole meeting, September 17th, 2024 minutes, moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Deputy Mayor Densham.
Any questions or seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. And moving on to discussion and additional items where you guys come into play. So I will maybe let opening remarks from members of council, but I will start. So the intent of tonight is not to point any fingers at anybody. We're here to kind of collaborate, get together. It's no different than I look at my own family. So I have 3 daughters. How you manage your family. This is what we're, so the intent is for you guys to understand what is going to be, what is basically expected of you guys as far as what council, our vision, but at the same time, we're here to see what you guys are looking. So there's a fairly lengthy agenda. I know there's the agreement to go through. We're not going to solve and sign any agreement tonight. It's basically more so to get through the agenda and understand where we feel that. So when I relate back to family, what I want to see is if I go and buy a brand new car to my 3 daughters, I don't want them to take the car, not change oil in it for 10 years or for 5 years, and then expect, well, that will just buy me a new one. This is sort of the mindset that I see, where the money that's spent on rec is basically all of our money. If we can have savings here or there, so I prefer if we can work together. You guys can own your halls and really look at moving forward in a very productive but at the same time, we cannot. It's very difficult if we look at the increase in cost. And I know that rec is part of a healthy well-being. It's something I think you need in your community. So we're working very hard, but as a small municipality with 6 recs, and same thing, if we expand with 4 fire departments, it gets really tough to try to maintain a fiscal responsibility of council at the same time and just give so the intent for tonight is to go through what our expectations are of you and what you finding out what we, how and we're going to be helping you guys to make sure that everybody has a nice community to work in. So if any other members want to maybe add to that, Steve, Deputy Mayor Densham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And no, first, I just want to congratulate everybody and thank you for making our community our community. I mean, it's only through the efforts of all of the volunteers that, our community really has the life that it has. And there's a lot of work that's been done. I also want to mention the fact that, we look back. I've been on now, this is my second term being one of the counselors assigned to the rec committee. And I look back to when I first came on and the progress that has been made. It used to be that many of the rec groups were just kind of fighting for their own identity and asking council for money each year. But I think through the efforts of Ellen and Pierre over the years, many of the rec groups are now collaborating together, working together, sharing best practices, sharing great ideas to make yourself stronger and make yourself more effective. And at the time last previous term, we pulled together the ARC agreement, which I think was a big first step, but it's really apparent that it's time to now grow that to the next level. And so my hope is that through the many discussions here, we can understand all of the things, the pressures that are coming in. Some, as the mayor mentioned, are financial pressures. Things aren't getting any cheaper. But at the same time, our community is growing bigger. People's expectation for having some place to gather, some place to be able to actually post-COVID, a lot of people are turning back to getting outdoors. And I think that's important. So how do we work together to make this, take this to the next level? But still make it sustainable. So that's what I'm hoping to get out of this. Like I say, there's always going to be financial pressures and they're only getting more difficult. But how do we work together so that council is enabling you guys, helping you guys to be able to do what you do best, which is really create the community spirit that comes first and foremost, in my opinion, through the rec groups.
Thank you. Any further comments or? So
it's just quick, but for some of us, we aren't on the rec committee. Some of us members of council aren't on the rec committee. So it's a nice opportunity for us to, oh yeah, I talk too quietly, they tell me. It's a really nice opportunity for us. Sometimes we sit here and we're making decisions and we're wishing to hear more from you guys and from all of you. So this was something that came out of a lot of the needs that the mayor and deputy mayor have already addressed, but also our desire as council to be able to sit down and talk together. And I think even though I haven't sat on the rec committee, obviously I've been a member of a community. And some communities I've seen, losing different types of facilities, losing services, to our north, having difficulties keeping their libraries open, to the south, losing the community hall in St. Andrews. And we can all see that the writing on the wall. So I think North Stormont is, if it's rich in one thing, it's rich in our ability to work together and be good volunteers. But that doesn't replace cash at the end of the day. So if we don't talk about this stuff together now, I think we're heading towards the same challenges as other communities. So just happy to see everyone here today and appreciate all your time being here. Thank you.
thank you. Go ahead, Councilor Buccelli.
Just looking forward to actually hearing the discussion. Our recreation programming would not exist without you. So I understand the pressures on all of you. I understand what you're being paid for that. So realistically, anything we can do to help. And it's great to hear from people that are running it on the daily level as well. So it's one thing for us just to look at numbers and see where we're at and where the trends are going. But the people that are working on the front lines, the people, all of you that are actually keeping it going, can provide invaluable feedback to us as well so that we can see this actually grow and evolve.
Thank you.
I just
Councilor
want
Sheen.
to add that it's great to see all the volunteers here. You guys are the ones that keep all these rec committees running. There's a lot goes on behind the scenes that a lot of people in these towns don't recognize, but we see it. And to keep them running, like echoing what council here has said, it's a lot of money to keep all these buildings maintenance, whatnot going. So hopefully today, work out a great agreement and appreciate the work you guys do.
Thank you. And before we get started, the last thing we want to do, and plain English, is to piss you off because the intention is to work together. If we don't have the volunteers, our communities are gonna, that the service that you guys create, what you bring to each community is what makes North Stormont. So at the end of the day, the last thing we want is to think that we're being the dictator and we're going to tell you what to do is not our intention. So if we can start by working together, is our main goal. So as we start through the discussion, Madam Clerk, so will the Amalgamated Recreation Committee, do we move on to, so would Pierre, would you be taken on to start the discussion, or how did we want to, for each of the line items that we have? So let's just maybe bring the first one, the item 6.1, maybe if we can just get the
So
The discussion's
6.1729-2012 was a resolution. It's an amalgamated recreational operational constitution that was passed. The second item was 74-2017, a bylaw establishing an amalgamated recreation committee. 73-20 is the current bylaw entering into an agreement with the amalgamated recreation committee. I believe Pierre and Frank could probably speak a little more to those.
Ultimately, I'll just speak to this high level. Ultimately, all of those three documents that were referenced need to be reviewed and condensed into one modern policy. Certainly, there is some conflicting clauses in all of the three, but the point of tonight, or this one line item, is just to get an understanding from both council, staff, and the rec groups on how we're going to move this forward. Basically, take it from a very broad discussion piece and narrow it down. So no decisions will be made at this meeting, of course, because it's committee of the whole. But at least the next meeting that the recs are invited to, we can hopefully start drafting a new, and again, I use the term modernized agreement that reflects some of the changes that have been brought forward by the rec committees and some that have been brought forward by council.
Okay, thank you. So Pierre, could I maybe get you to get the discussions started?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair, we will start with a amalgamated recreation agreement that was drafted in 2020 and signed by all recreations. We have, if in front of you, council, you have our special meeting that was held on October 26, 2023 in Monkland, where our amalgamated recreation wanted recommendation for a change as far as what they're requesting compared to the original agreement. So you have these highlighted items that they request attention from council to see if we can negotiate something with a recreation. Also in front of you, amalgamated recreation committee ARC agreement suggestions. It was provided by one of the recreation members as highlights of what they'd like to see as far as what is we got in the agreement and what is not followed from the agreement. So these are things I think we can review tonight and make sure we're all on the same page as far as what's the obligation of the municipality and what's the obligation of our volunteer recreation committees. If we want to start, I think if our treasurer Kim is on board, I think definitely our big item is operating risk versus capital. So all our recreation committees understand the difference between these two. And that seems to be an issue when it comes to repairs or replacement or the funding required for these replacement or repairs. So Kim, would you have a chance to explain to the council and to recreation associations the difference between the two items, capital and operational?
Yeah, absolutely. Through the mayor.
You're muted, Kim.
I'm unmuted here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
way better. Way better.
You hear me now?
Kim?
Is there, we had to do the same on the, so
Kim, are you
I think-
available?
I'm here.
Okay,
Perfect.
could you please explain the difference for recreation and council? So we have a clear mandate, what is our operational and capital budget according to a treasurer of municipality? So this way we can clear some misinterpretation on the existing agreement where there's quite a conflict between the two items.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So operating budgets are basically day-to-day funding, okay? So it's like your budget to operate your house. You need food, you need hydro, you need heat, you need some minor equipment changes, you need filters changed in your furnace. It's basically gone at the end of the year. That's the way an operating expenditure is. Revenue sources are usually user fees, grants, and according to municipal, but they're gone within a year. Capital budgets usually tend to be more 5 to 10 years, and they have to do with improvements to capital. They have to do some major improvements or minor improvements to extend the life of municipal assets to 5 to 10 years. So it could be things like roads, bridges, culverts, things like that. But if you need a new furnace, for example, that has an extended life of, say, 5 to 10, maybe hopefully 15 years, but who knows? In my opinion, that is extending the life of that asset, and that is considered capital. So whatever is expended in a year is considered operating. Whatever has a useful life that extends the useful life of that asset by, say, at least 5 years is considered capital. Does that help out?
If I can add, so the maintenance on, I'll use the furnace as an example, the maintenance on a furnace, which would be to me operational, which is on a yearly basis, where when, say, 15 years down the road, we need to replace that unit, that would be capital, correct?
That is correct. So the day-to-day, but you have to change the filters, you have to have the inspections done, that is considered operating. But when that unit dies and you need to replace it to extend, like to make it work for another 10 years, that's considered capital.
Well, maybe at this point, I'll take, if there's anybody on that don't understand, or maybe has an example that they want to bring up that would maybe fall into this category. So is there any questions from the rec? So basically, and I think it's something new as far as looking at doing the maintenance, having somebody that comes in so that it's we know exactly that it is being done and not getting put aside. And when I referred back to having 3 girls who you buy the car, if they don't do oil changes for the full 5 years, well, that's the part that they're not doing their operational side of things. The capital is the expense of the car. So I think it's all clear of, now we're just using a furnace. Could we maybe, Pierre, do you have other example just to maybe spark up some discussion if you know of areas where it might be grayer?
Yeah, so through the chair, right now, we're signing service agreements for HVAC, plumbing, electrical. We're gonna go this way as, but to be clear with every recreation is, they are aware of which contractor is awarded their contract. Council or township doesn't take this decision. It's taken with them. We went through all the buildings and they picked the contractor. The only issue we have to make sure, because we're institutional, that the contractor coming in are licensed to service institutional facilities. So this will be a requirement in their agreement that they have to be mandated and have all the certification and insurance in place before we award the contract. It'll be the same thing for the pool maintenance, the pool opening, closing, make sure they have the liability insurance, make sure they're certified. That doesn't only protect the municipality, also protects our volunteers to make sure the people that we do hire are qualified to do the job. In the long term of this, well-maintained and lube equipment lasts a lot longer than something that's rusting down in a corner. So our goal as a municipality is make sure that all our facilities are well-maintained, reduce our service calls, or reduce it adds a longevity to our equipment. And that's the biggest thing, is to make sure that our asset lasts as long as we can. And without good servicing, this is not possible. So our main goal right now is to, because that was one of the requests, to try to get all contractors together. It's very hard because the municipality we are in, we have contractors that are local, that supports our recreation, so we're trying to go with individuals to allow everybody a chance to go to these jobs and bids on them as long as they qualify. So this is why we went to recreation, to them to authorize who's going to be the contractor, because each recreation, as that is part of operational, they are invoiced back for all the fees, excluding the HST. So we receive the invoice are made to the township, so this way we can keep track of the service. After that, we'll re-invoice the recreation, and they'll approve that the service got done before the payment is done. So that's the new procedure we're going to take for all our contracts. This way, we'll make sure that everybody doing service in the municipality are well insured, are well certified, and hopefully this will keep our facilities open a little bit longer without putting too much maintenance on it.
Any questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Dench.
Actually, at this point, I'd love to hear from the people out there more myself, because my hope is that we can get some real clarity on some of this, because we're putting a lot of facts on the table, but I'm not hearing necessarily it coming out in terms of what therefore is going to be the proposal. What we're proposing then, that all of the rec groups must use contractors to do their servicing, which generally speaking, contracting is often more expensive than doing some of the work yourself. Are we suggesting that now becomes a requirement that they use contractors in order to be sure that it's done appropriately? And are all the rec groups okay to sign up for paying those contractors to do the maintenance work? Again, I intentionally want to hear some of the more provocative answers, because I want to get a feel for where you guys are at in terms of what's being proposed. So first, am I getting that straight, or?
A lot of work, through the chair, a lot of work can be done by volunteers for sure, but anything that needs certification, I don't think we have anybody that's certified as a
Right.
volunteer,
Like
unless you
diplomas.
can have a contractor just come and volunteer, as long as he's got the certification. Bonus for you, because it won't cost you as much. But when it comes to HVAC, electrical and plumbing, these are things that the insurance will go after you if it's not done properly, or the last person that touched it needs to be certified in case something would happen with liability. It's like doing it at your own home. If you change electrical in it and something happened, they'll ask who's the last one that's certified to touch your equipment or touch your.
Yeah, but as an example, I think I've heard one of the things is changing the furnace filters, and some of the furnaces haven't had their filters changed in years, but those are things that can be done by the users. And so I guess I want to understand what's the goal of. I agree with, and I suspect many of the people will agree with, when it comes to things like handling chemicals for pools where you have to have certification, that kind of makes sense to do that. But where do we draw the line is kind of where I'm fishing for, is to understand, are you guys kind of saying, if we're not doing the maintenance ourselves properly, are we saying that we want the director to have the authority to say, we're going to do this through contract work, and then you're on the hook to paying for it? So what's the balance there that we're trying to strike?
Through the chair, the way we did the contract, they were every 6 months. So in between interval of 6 months, volunteers be required, as long as because some of them, certain halls that they're working on heights, so you need the certification to go and change a filter because they're 10 feet in the air. But anything that's accessible with your 2 feet on the ground, we'd like recreation to change the filters. When we do the contract, there'll be a recommendation by our HVAC contractor says we recommend that we change the filter every 2 months. He's not going to come every 2 months, change the filter. So that's when we expect recreation to do these small tasks in between the service agreement. So there's still a responsibility from recreation part to maintain it, but we'll make sure that everything is washed as far as cooling and everything, so we can get more efficient to our buildings. But there's still a requirement from our volunteers that maintain the buildings and do change the filter in the interval of the 6 months period.
And through the chair, I
Kim?
believe the treasurer would like to make a comment.
Yeah, Kim, if you want.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm looking at the current agreement, and for operating, it says it will cover heat, hydro, snow removal, internet. Each individual recreation committee is responsible for operating costs clearly defined as daily, weekly, or annual services, repairs, and maintenance. which is fine. But under plumbing, it grays because it says a purchase of a new water heater, new toilets, and new sinks. That isn't, that's not an operational cost because the water heater is going to last for years. It's not going to happen just right now. But the maintenance on it is required. Under electrical, it says minor changes, new plug installations, light fixtures, blah, blah, blah. But a new panel box is not an operational cost. The new panel box is considered, as far as I'm concerned, capital, because the new panel box isn't going to expire in a year. It's going to last there for a lot of years. But it's very clear, but it needs to be defined in this agreement. The servicing and annual services to keep these assets operating is an operational cost to these associations, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I could be wrong, but the stuff that makes assets last longer than 1 year, a panel box, a new hot water tank, an HVAC system, like they are major costs, but they're capital in nature. But the operating costs extend the life of those assets. So if the filters aren't being replaced, if the daily maintenance isn't being taken care of, those assets will expire much quicker than in the long run. So we have to have a really great relationship in making those things work.
So now I'll stop this side and I'll maybe, is there anybody that starts, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, you had mentioned about snow removal, which becomes something that's part of the operating cost of the township, right? But it doesn't cover snow removal at doors or walkways or entrances. It's only parking lots. So that was one that was just brought up, that snow removal is included in something from the township. So I just want to clarify that.
Yeah,
We did have to have a second contract with the same contractor to do our doors and walkways and so yeah. So technically we had 3 different people doing snow, like 3 different contractors doing snow in Moose Creek this year. Because the township was doing the back section to get to the propane tanks. The contractor was doing the parking lot, and then the contractor had a contract with us as the rec to do the doors and walkways.
That's accurate.
So
I don't know, do you want to add to that?
Through the chair, without having Public Works here who kind of administers those snow removal agreements, I can indicate that that's an accurate assessment. Why the contracts are worded in that regard, I'd have to defer that to Blake or Elliot.
If I can add, you just get Elliot. So you're fortunate enough to have your lawn mowed by a very good resident. No, I don't, like, there's some of those stuff. I'm not part of the ARC, so there's a few, but that's more in-house where to make the I know for the parking lot where we need the
I
heavy
just think it's like
machinery.
another area that's a gray area, right? And saying like what we're talking about furnace filters and stuff, we made an agreement that the company is gonna come in, do the maintenance, leave the filters so we can change them throughout the time, which is fine, but just the snow removal one is kind of why the contract pays them to come show up and then we have to pay them again to show up at the same building to do walkways and entrances. And I get when we have an event, you're gonna have to shovel the entrance, it's not gonna be done every single time. But after every snow, it should be included in the parking lot cleaning, but. Yeah, so.
It just gets,
I'm sure we're not the only ones that are like that, but.
the tough task is there's many that will tender it where they don't get out of their tractors. So once you
Yeah.
get to it's now a different
Yeah,
optics and
sure, yeah.
then that's
Like I said, we use the same contractor that the township had for the park.
Okay.
It's just like I said, we were one snow removal, we had 3 different kind of contracts, right? Township was doing part of it. The company was doing part of it, and then we were paying the company to finish the walkways and the doorways.
did you,
Through the chair, I think it's to make it even for everywhere. If you have a township that's doing, let's say Chrysler, they do not do the doors or exit doors or anything close to the building. So is it the way that Blake installed it so it's more even for everybody? Or else would be asking roads department to go out and shovel the doors, exit doors at other facilities. So I think Moose Creek and Monklin got contractors. The rest is all the township, I believe.
That does the snow removal?
Yeah, that's,
For the doors?
We also pay the clinic that's out of Stormont place, so that too. And for the library as well. It's your liability, how.
but
Like, if it's a volunteer that's clearing this snow versus a contractor, the liability of slip and falls.
Which it opens up, and you know what? This is one of the main reasons why we're here tonight is everything is escalating. And it's not that we're telling Pierre, you go get them. You know, it's basically the liability that is now, and the pool is a very good example, the liability that's now in place where, oh, you had a student that was putting in, if something was to happen, we would get put through the ringer. So now all of a sudden, the director basically comes to council and says, okay, we have an issue here. And that was brought up by other municipalities saying, oh, I don't know how they operate like to be, and it's all on risk management. And it comes a point where we as a council are responsible for looking after the best interests of the municipality. So if we're neglectful and we kind of just say, oh, that's fine. It's, you know, it won't happen to us. It doesn't happen in your own backyard, is not the proper way. And everything is escalating to the point where there's a lot of municipalities where the volunteerism has been reduced because of it. We're so far, touch wood, we've been lucky where we're more of a rural, great communities working together, and we're trying to maintain that to offer the services that we do. If we did it without the volunteers, your taxes would be, you know, different. So Steve, maybe can.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point, Lorena. I think liability needs to be touched on in the agreement, like who owns what reliability, on what, how it's paid for can be another conversation as well. But I think it's a good point because in effect, it's the liability that is creating insurance concerns, that is creating new regulations to be followed, which is creating additional cost for all of these services. So I think it's a really good point because it needs to be somehow in the agreement such that everybody who's signed up on that can feel comfortable that they're covered. And then we can debate where the cost goes. Again, like I say, or as the mayor's pointed out, I was fortunate enough to be around since the beginning of this, but our costs at the rec level have gone from $400,000 in 2019 up to $836,000 in 2025. So it's more than doubled the cost. And I can tell you a part of that is because of the regulation and because of the insurance part. And even this is the data that was available. But if you go back before 2019, each rec group got $15,000, which is about $90,000 that went in this. And so again, the costs are skyrocketing. And I'll tell you as well, from 2025, even though it was at $836,000, which is twice what we were spending in 2019, haven't had the chance yet to put money into reserves to be able to save up for things like roofs that are getting older. So if we don't start putting money in reserves, there's going to be some major capital expenses. And I think that's part of the reason, in my opinion, the Director of Finance mentioned the fact that, you know, things that fall under the capital umbrella, like water heaters and stuff like that, in the first iteration of the agreement, they were covered by the rec groups. And the reason they were done that is because at the time, I think it was Jim Wirt recognized this line was going to start growing very quickly, and it's got to be sustainable. So how do we share the costs? Because from this perspective, on the other side of that sheet, what you'll find is a demographic view of North Stormont that basically says Right now, more than 20% of the people who live in North Stormont could qualify for subsidized housing. So if we raise taxes, it's those people that I'm most concerned about, to be honest. So those 20% of people who would qualify, and that's just qualify for subsidized housing. Probably about half of the people are living almost paycheck to paycheck. So if we simply say, well, let's just raise taxes so that we can cover all of that, it's just not going to be feasible in my opinion. So the question is, how do we get the money? That's really what it's going to come down to. Where does the money come from? And that comes into the services and the fundraising and those types of things. So we need to be clear, I guess, on where the money is coming from to be able to support the activities. And do we need to stop doing some stuff? Because there's some things that we're trying to accomplish that just we're not servicing a lot of people. Those are some of the things we need to ask ourselves. But anyhow, I went on a long tangent there, but I think it started off saying that I think liability is one of the things that is driving costs up, in my opinion.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
Just a recommendation that we probably follow up with our road staff on the snow issue, but I think, well, maybe Craig's trying not to rain on our parade, but most municipalities know that joint and several liability, it doesn't matter how responsible the municipality is, we have the deepest pockets and we're the ones that'll be sued and be responsible. So at the end of the day, he who has the purse will be responsible. So it will be us. At the end of the day, there's a lot of changes coming on salt liability in the province, I hope this year, and that may change things too, but it doesn't matter. You're really talking about how do we get the snow taken away so you can get people into your building. So I suggest maybe that's great feedback. And I think that's something we follow up with the people who actually know this work the best, which is those guys taking the snow away.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ricky.
As a volunteer, then my question is, like, the coaches and the volunteers and the people working in the recreation facilities, are they all covered under your liability insurance with the township? Because somebody was asking about shovelers, are they covered under liability? We do have that, don't we?
Go ahead, Pierre.
Through the chair, if you go to Intact Risk Management, and that's our broker that we use for the municipality, when you have things like this, we go to Intact and we send them an email requesting, okay, this is the information, what is the risk for the municipality, what's their best practice to this. All the volunteers are covered no matter what they do as due diligence. If it's a negligence, it's another story, but if it's a due diligence, our ice and snow is the worst. As far as risk management, according to regulation, is we have to log every time we clear a driveway or a sidewalk or in front of an exit. We're supposed to log it. We're supposed to log when we put salt down. Asking this for volunteers, it's impossible. So touch wood, nothing really happened in the past. How we're going to move forward, as you brought it forward, how we're going to move forward to reduce this risk, as nobody's taking logs on when it got done. So you can come to an event where it was nice when you came out, we had freezing rain, nobody went outside, somebody slips, said, when's the last time you put salt on, or when's the last time you went and checked if everything was safe? And if you have nothing recorded, if you have nothing on file, you can't prove anything in the court. So there's logbooks that ORFA supplies for this, which is snow and ice maintenance program that comes out. It all depends where this is going to come up as a thing, as it's something that we will have to look. But at the end of the day, is who's going to pay for all this extra? We can only ask so much from our tax-based payers. So at one point, we got to add stuff to protect our municipality. But at the other hand, there's a cost to all this. And how are we going to justify this cost to keep all our community centers open? And if some of you have very nice bank accounts, I know you have projects in line, you line it up. Is there a portion of this that can come back to help with this maintenance, or how we can work it out as far as recreation with council to not elevate where our tax rate is going to be too high for recreation, but in the meantime, offer the same service, but offer that our facilities are safe. And that's where I think this negotiation will go. If we go that way, I know it's a mandate to have the logbooks. We've been lucky, nothing happened, but same thing with your park inspection. it's mandated that we have to have a logbook.
And that's the changes that we're talking about under the liability and so on. So back, like we have come, for some of these who are way younger, but we have come a long ways. I think Ellen's one, Ricky, you'll probably remember the 15,000 that Deputy Mayor Densham meant. We as a township, when I got on in 2014, it was here's $15,000. Like some halls was costing more just to heat and hydro. So they had to basically fundraise just to pay the rest of the electricity bill or so now we kind of change that where we'll come in, we'll keep the place lit. We've got the heat go. So what we're expecting is for you guys to, the fundraising that you're doing is to maintain and offer the services that the community is looking for, whether it's through your base, your summer programs, whether it's, so again, like I said, we've come a long ways, but as we move, we've been 40 minutes here. I don't know. I just want to touch, there's more, but as we move forward, do we, let me just, my phone is on off, but my watch was that. So with respect to the agreement, it's just, I think we can go all night with different things on the agreement. So is there something maybe that you guys have notes on that you would like to bring up that you're not agreeing with the way it's being done? I have a few things that I will bring up, but it's more for you guys to be. So is there something from the rec groups, or do we go to the next item in the agreement, Pierre? Maybe that's gray that would need some clarification.
Up to your, for recreation, to the sheriff recreation, got a few points to make.
For liability for the volunteers, like it's been rumored that we're gonna have to start doing inspections for all the parks. The volunteers are gonna be taking care of that, right? Well, Avamore, we don't have a ton of volunteers and like I'm doing 5 different things, right? I'm not running to the park every day. So what happens if we don't have someone to inspect the park? Do we lose our park? Are we liable if we're not inspecting the park because we can't? Right? I don't think the volunteers should be inspecting for safety in the first place. I think that should be a township responsibility. Yes, we'll maintain it and run it, but like I think there should be some oversight on it, right? And if it's a asset of the township should be the one ultimately to inspect it. Yes, we should have reports or something. If there's something wrong, we can forward to you and say, this needs to be fixed, that needs to be fixed.
But as far as qualifications, I'm not sure.
But something like that, like it's like little things like that where it's up to the volunteers to inspect and we don't have the volunteers to do it, right?
Go ahead, Steve.
I'll just talk generically to it. I guess we got 3 mics. Sorry. Yeah, we do there. Okay. Yeah, again, it comes down to if we say, does the municipality do it? That means somebody from Public Works whose wage is being paid to do that, which basically means, do we ask the taxpayers to pay for it? That's what we're basically saying, or we have some, because again, that's basically what it comes down to. Again, I'm going to refer back to, because this really made an impression on me when Jim Wirt was mayor, and he said right up front, with a population of 7,700, which is what we have, we should have 1 community center and 1 pool. We've got 5 community centers, 2 pools, and a bunch of different parks. To increase our municipal staff or to pay contractors to come in and do those inspections, we're going to have to take our $800,000 taxation and turn it into $1.6 million, which basically means half of your tax bill is going to be going to recreation. So it's a good question, but we need to find out what's the right formula. How can we service this? And that's really, I don't have an answer. It really comes down to the reason we have all of these assets is because volunteers did it in the past. If the volunteers can't do it anymore because we have dwindling numbers of volunteers, those are the tough questions we're going to have to ask. Can we afford to have this park? Can we afford to have this pool? Can we afford to put the cost on top of it? So it's a really, really good question. And I'm not even going to try to answer it at this point in time. Yeah. No,
But I'm just confused a little bit. So when you're talking about the park, are you just talking about a weekly oversight of just making sure that there's not something like, I mean, do you not have to be qualified to be able to identify a true park reassess.
No, you don't need to be certified unless you do a proper inspection, and we have somebody that is certified at the municipality for a park inspection. We do a third-party inspection every year to come up with the real facts, and these are professionals coming in and to do a full park inspection. Everybody got the report last fall. This is to protect what's going on and protect our structure, to maintain them. I know it's very hard to go every day. How are we going to put it that we have the liability of it? So if you go to perfect example, a swing set, where the safety surface underneath is supposed to be 12 inches. Well, we all know when the kids swing, they'll drag their feet, and now we have a big dip. Well, if somebody falls off the swing and they can prove that there was a dip there and the safety first surface wasn't there, the township is liable for it. So that's the way the system goes. So without proving a written saying that I was there this morning, everything was fine, or every 2 days, maybe we can work it, see the insurance, they allow every 2 days or once a week. And then say, okay, we went and checked the surface, everything was fine. And to do a proper inspection is just to make sure that nothing is loose and nothing is hanging, nothing. So, and that's about it as far as these inspections. We will do the internal inspection with our inspector that's certified, that will go around the parks and make sure they're maintained to the full inspection. But the rest is just going through the park and making sure that these safety surfaces are properly done. The rest, you'll see if there's a swing that's hanging by only one chain, obviously we have an issue. But the rest is just eyesight, what
Visual.
you're seeing.
You can go ahead,
Volunteer numbers are going down, and now we're saying, you need to start the car, you need to drive over. You know, we're out of town, so every day we have to drive in I have to drive into town 5 minutes, drive home 5 minutes. It's my money. Like, I need to pay for my groceries, right? I need to pay for vehicle maintenance. If I lived across the street, I don't pay in it because I can walk, you know, but it's costing volunteers money. Where they're volunteering.
when you say volunteering, so my thought is, are we
Excuse
talking about
me?
it has to be a rec?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can she please speak into the microphone? No one can hear her online, sorry.
Okay, so can you hear me now? Oh, are you talking about the question, Kim?
Yes, I am, sorry. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
So we will, the next question will come up, we'll have to, so no, just with regards to the volunteers, does it have to be somebody that's on the committee of the rec? I'm just saying, if you have volunteer as in town, really a volunteer, the people that use it. So if there's nobody going, so somebody that is using the park, and you always can identify, those are the people that you would kind of do the visual. No, you can't.
The biggest problem is you only have so many volunteers, and if you need someone to go every day to the park and inspect it, well, you're not gonna have someone, even if you try as hard as you can. An alternative might be put a sign in the park, and you see anything wrong, contact this number or something like this, right? Even up to some of the parents with their kids at the park.
Yeah.
Through the chair, if you look at some of the recreation facilities right now, and I'll mention Moose Creek, is they got a retired person, Mr. McCray, that goes, and he does, I don't think he's part of your association committee, and he goes and he does an inspection. We provide him with a fillable PDF inspection. He goes by, fills it up, and send it to us. He doesn't need to be on a committee, doesn't mean, but he's assigned to this, so he took his responsibility to make sure that the park is safe for every day or every second day. So he sends us the report that he did an inspection. But I don't know, it's not every town that's got retired or somebody available to go by, because it's an easy training we can just matter of a few minutes, we can show exactly what the person needs to look at, and that's it, right?
Did you have something to add?
I just want a clarification on the current expectation. Is it daily that they do require? It's every single day?
According to intact risk managers, yes, it is. But that's just a recommendation. If we can look to truer asset management, if we can do it once a week, then if council will allow me to go once a week also to make sure that our park are all the standard. And then when they need an inspection, we'll get an inspector that's certified to come and see if we did any work that we do as repair. must be approved by a certified inspector as soon as we repaired something. So with some of them had repairs to be done, technically till this is given the approval by a certified park inspector, the park should have remained closed till she said, okay, your work has been done, that you got the third-party inspection, this is the work that need to be performed, the work has been done by volunteers, doesn't need to be certified for staff or certified company, but the work's been done, it's approved, and the park opens. So that's how easy it can be done, that unless it's a big item, the rest small items could be done once a week or every 2 weeks by a volunteer, or somebody, like they said, put a sign up where if you see deficiencies in the park, please call, and then we can look in these issues. But the biggest one is the safety surface, and that's the biggest one in TAC or pushing.
Okay, I'll go to Steve and then Linda.
And I think we all know that.
You want to turn the mic on, Steve, so that.
I think we all know that part of the dwindling volunteers is the fact that liability is the most used word in this area, well, in the country now. And like Lorena said, we're not going to shovel the yard because then we're liable. And it comes down to the same thing. We're asking volunteers to go to these parks and then they're putting their signature. Like I know we have Elliot, but we have Elliot this year and like he was gone last year. He's back, so let's hope he stays. But like I said, he's putting his name on the line saying that it's okay every day.
To the best of his knowledge.
100%. But at the end of the day, sitting in a courtroom when somebody's lost a life because they fell and whatever happened, they're going to ring him out. And as a volunteer should, you know what I mean? Like that's and I get that's with everything we do. No matter what, as volunteers, you're putting yourself in that position all the time. But I think that's where we get a lot of volunteers saying, I get it with our group, who's covering us if something happens, right? And I think that might be something that's got to be more clear from the township. Like you said, yeah, you guys are the ones that are going to be going after, but that person's still going to be sitting in front of a courtroom as the person that signed off on it, right? And put their name out on it to their knowledge. But if we're not training, we're letting anybody walk by and look at the park and say, yeah, it's good. Their knowledge isn't really what the insurance is asking for. So do you think the insurance is going to flip them over too and put them through the ringer just as bad, you know? So I really think that that's a situation we have to look at, that it's either that it's but if it's daily too, right? And that's why we are dwindling in volunteers, because everybody's worried about the liability of everything you do. Right? So
I'll go, there's a question in the back, but I'll go with Linda and then.
So just, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to give you how we operate in Chrysler is we are hiring a summer student who will be doing the park maintenance. We did apply for the grant, but we were declined, but we are still moving forward with that. So this student will be trained to do the inspection. We have no choice but to do it daily because we have a summer camp renting the Tebow Center. So they will be accessing our park on a daily basis. So this student will be shown how to inspect, and if there's something major, that they will be able to flag it to us, and then we can take precaution on getting that repaired. So I just wanted to let you know. I know we're going above and beyond, like us volunteers work throughout the day. We have no choice but to go this option when it comes to the summer for the park and maintenance, so.
Okay. There was a question to back.
The insurance is saying that they want it done daily. If we can't have volunteers to do it daily, they're gonna appreciate that we're gonna do it once a month. So if we meet once a month, can't we just, like our president, can't he just go inspect it, say, yeah, I inspected, fill out whatever form, and that means getting checked once a month. In addition, the sign saying like, if there's any issues, please call this number. It'll be recorded. Like I grew up in Cornwall and we go to Cornwall Parks a lot. Almost every park in Cornwall, there is a sign that says that. And on myself, I call or text that number immediately. Safety I have a 5-year-old at home and there's a glass broken, we're gonna call it in. We're not gonna let our kids play on that play structure. So our community don't want these sites to be closed. So I think that we should trust our community to do that if we put those signs up.
Well, there'll be way more discussion than just tonight. I wish I had the answer, but Craig.
I just wanted to reiterate that this is a recommendation, and of course, the insurance companies are always risk adverse. Obviously, that's their business. So they are strongly recommending that if we have the resources, whether it be a volunteer or a municipal asset, to go and look at these locations every day. That is just simply unreasonable. It's a recommendation, not a mandate. I can assure you, in some of our adjacent urban municipalities with 900 plus parks, they do not have the resources to go every day to look at the parks. And they do it while they're doing their regular weekly maintenance, I believe it is. And of course, yes, they rely on patrons to alert the city through their 311 call center if there are any deficiencies that need to be rectified. So I think we have to look at reasonableness. And also I understand that there's some concerns on the volunteers about being pulled into the court, but as long as we have done what a reasonable person would be expected, and they will be covered under insurance, I think it would be highly unlikely that we would get to a court case. If anybody can point to one in the last decade, I would be more than open to discuss this a little further. And I understand there's some concerns, but I think the risk is low.
Through the chair, if you want, for recreation and council, I can certainly look into what signage could be done if that signage would remove that burden off volunteers that they have to go daily, and maybe make a plan with our CEO administration to see if we got staff available to go once a week at least to do a proper inspection of the facilities. And in the meantime, we're just going to use with the signs if this is within our regulation of this, and if both parties are okay with this, I think that's will alleviate a big burden off the volunteers as far as park maintenance.
Perfect. Adrian.
So I think there's a clear path to resolution here on this issue. If anything, it's just wanting to demonstrate due diligence. I think that there's been great feedback with respect to putting out signage. And whatever is the capacity, clearly we do not have the capacity to be inspecting the park every day. So if that does mean monthly, as long as we can demonstrate that we have shown that due diligence, it's unreasonable to ask volunteers to drive and check it every day. So I think we're kind of right there on how we can write this into agreement.
And if I could suggest, perhaps we can take this offline, as is the approach for committee of the whole. We can divert this to the director of rec to liaise with our community rec groups, and we can again find a balanced, reasonable approach where we minimize our risk as much as we can, but we also have to be mindful of our resource limitations as well, and the volunteer time as well.
Yeah, and just on that, because we've heard diverse perspective on what people are prepared to step up to do. Like somebody's prepared to hire a student, some people are prepared to put in a sign. I think that's really helpful. And whether Pierre's going to reach out, sounds like you may be reaching out for it or not. I still think that if as volunteer groups, if you were to send Pierre an email saying, you know what, for this issue, here's what we're prepared to do. Maybe you'd say, I'd be prepared to pitch in, or our group would be prepared to pitch in for a student who would go around to various parks and do all of the checks throughout the summer on a regular basis. Anything like that to help us get towards a resolution would be helpful. But like I say, it sounds like some people are already prepared to do that on their own, but sharing the costs so that you can lessen the cost and broaden the scope of the support. That may be things that you guys might want to volunteer to Pierre, so that when he's pulling together a recommendation, he knows what you're prepared to support right off the bat.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not sure in regards to the agreement, if there's anything else that is a must discussion that we should bring up. Maybe I'll take Pierre to take the lead on this. Microphone, Pierre. Thank you.
Through the chair, if Kim is present, if you want to give a little bit of update on the HST, as that was one of the questions from Amalgamated Recreation, as some community center are having HST numbers and some of them aren't. So I think Kim got an update actually at close to 5 o'clock today on this issue.
Before I move, Kim, so is this moving on to item 6.3? Is that in regards to the HST reporting, or is that? So we will be discussing, I'm just to finish off anything to do with the agreement. If there's main concerns from go ahead, Craig.
No, I agree. I'm endorsing what Mayor Landry is suggesting. Let's have the discussion with the rec groups on what other items that they feel need to be changed or modified. And then we can certainly move on to item 6.3, but I'd like to stay on target with the current agreement and find out what other items that need to be changed.
Perfect. So I'll give it now. I don't know if you guys made yourself some list. If there's anything that you would, from your experience at your own rec table, is there anything that you would like to bring forward in regards to trying to finalize this agreement that everybody understands where we want to kind of direction we want to go, and making sure that you guys are willing to work with that? Or because if at the end of the day you're not supporting it, there's no need for us to see. So it's a collaborative thing. So is there any discussions? Go ahead, William.
I don't know if this is too specific, but something that we've run into quite a bit of upset about is having someone present when we're renting the halls. I understand the thought behind that is, listen, they could be burning the place down for all we know. That's another, if we rent the hall all day, now we got to find a volunteer to sit there and watch a birthday party. Yeah, so I just kind of want to hear your guys' thoughts, everyone else's thoughts on that.
I'll start. So my view is, in a way, if you're no different than if I rent out and to make sure, like you said, nobody's burning it down. But at the same time, it's an opportunity to get income revenues coming in regards to if you get that bars open. So for one example, I rented the hall for a family gathering, and I've got my family there. Yes, we want our bar open, and we're actually, so in one sense it does. Now you do need a volunteer to run the bar. I've done it many times, and and in regards to running the bar, some that are semi-retired saying, "Oh, I'll take care of that." There is tips depending on how that, but I've seen it being quite not worth your time. I'm not talking, you're not getting yourself rich, but if you come home and you put $100 in your pocket, and I've seen it many times working one evening at with the bar, if it's so I don't know, Pierre, if you can add to that, but I mean, it's something that I looked forward to when I was asked back in the day. I looked forward to running the bar. I don't know if that's the same technique. So I'll go to the front, and then I'll take the question at the back.
Like evenings, not you have the bar, you already have volunteers there, but like if we have a gathering after a funeral in the afternoon, well, then a volunteer has to go sit there, right? Or we have shuffleboard on Wednesday afternoons with retirees and stuff like this. Well, somebody has to go sit there, right? And it's like, I mean, yes, there are little things we can do, but like if somebody has to be there all the time, and especially stuff during the week when people work, like how are you going to get a volunteer at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? Right? Like
if I can add to shuffleboard, a lot of times you can have a volunteer that's playing shuffleboard that can be there. So you make somebody kind of in charge, and that's a great opportunity to do that. But I don't know if. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you can, if you've got regulars, I would encourage them to be volunteers just for that purpose. Only, like, don't invite them to attend all the committee meetings and stuff like that. Just say, can you be our designate, and maybe have a backup? So you two people who play shuffleboard, if one of you was away, at least we know one of you is there to unlock, make sure you check the locks, and we'll call you a volunteer, but we're not going to ask you to do anything except for that. Perfect. Yeah, where they basically become a pseudo volunteer for that period of time. And as well, I think it depends, and you mentioned this to me as well, Mr. Mayor. I know we've I sit on Morningside's board as well, and we let ourselves in, but I know the building, right? And so I'm prepared to kind of be that person who is a designated volunteer for that one event type of thing. And so again, I think, I don't know whether or not that's acceptable for that. Whereas if it's a one-off birthday party, then you kind of do get stuck. But if it's a regular occurrence, like pickleball or something like that, where you can get somebody who's already doing some organization or calling people who will just say, oh, you know what, I'm prepared to step up and do this much for you guys. Hopefully you can find that.
I believe it's just having somebody responsible for that. I think we had.
I guess our biggest thing is for funerals. The last thing I want to do if someone has lost a family member, say, oh, but can you be a volunteer for us and take some responsibility? It's just, and I certainly don't want to go sit in the corner. We have a funeral celebration of life this weekend. The last thing we want to do is go and sit there and be there while people are in mourning.
Go ahead, sorry, go ahead, Allison.
Just a suggestion. I know when I was at South Nation, we rent that space out to community groups all the time. And if it's just about having someone who takes responsibility for locking, unlocking, coding, et cetera, we would, if the pipe band wanted to rent it, whoever's responsible comes in, meets with the admin. She shows you how to do this stuff. She explains the stuff. You sign a paper saying, I'm going to do this. You leave the fob when you leave. They're not a volunteer, but they're the designated agent of that party who's renting, who's been assigned a responsibility and who can be held accountable. And I think that's how we did it at SNC. And obviously if there's a problem, you follow up with that person. Sometimes it was the hockey team, it'd be the coach. It was someone who has some kind of status within whatever the organization is, seems like a responsible person. Just a suggestion.
My first comment, I thought it was, I'm thinking always the fun stuff, work environment, I guess that's not always the case. So was there a question? I'll take the question from the back. Maybe if you can speak up and maybe Pete, just put your mic on.
Yeah, more or less we're like running into the problem of kids' birthday parties. So if I go open the door for somebody, I meet them, I can say, oh, I'm trusting you to run your event. I'll come lock up at the end of the day. Like, is it under our discretion to say that's okay? Are we allowed to choose who we want to trust in the center? Or do we have to have a volunteer sit there all day and watch this child's birthday party? Because the question that keeps coming in our center is, what will that parent do that I'm going to do differently? I don't know what to do if something goes wrong in this place. I'm calling my president or calling another committee member or 911. I don't really know why I'm there, just to watch the building and supervise. Like, that's the problem we're running into.
Pierre might be able to add to that, but my thing is if somebody from Ottawa rents your hall, they have no idea. They walk into a square room so if something was to happen, it could really go south, where at least a volunteer that's a part of the community that knows who to call or who to and be there. So I think, Pierre, do you want to add to that? I know, again, it's all liability, but.
They won't like my answer, but. A volunteer, first of all, is one of your members of your community. It doesn't need to be on the committee itself. But this person must be aware of the facility, where the exits are, where the emergency door are, where the extinguishers are. Because if I walked in the facility and I said, well, here's the code to get in this building, and when you're done, lock up, we have full liability of these people in our hall. And that doesn't say that they're not going to walk in with coolers of alcohol, where this will affect your license. And if you have experienced this before, when you have an inspector walking in and there's a pile of coolers on tables where there's no bar is open and you're fully licensed, you will experience that your license can be revoked pretty quickly. So therefore, for that one booking that you don't want to put a volunteer there, it might cost your license if they show up with alcohol in your hall. So that's one of the reasons is the alcohol itself. And it could be as much as a birthday party or a shower that somebody will walk in with alcohol as much as in the parking. We're responsible for our parking also. So these are why the insurance are insisting that we have somebody in the halls. First of all, for liability of the hall. unless we'd have somewhere that we can sign them up a sheet, but you still need to meet that person. You can't just say, here's the code, go in and lock up, because this person, now we have the liability for it, because it doesn't know where anything is as far as emergency. Or if they operate our kitchen, which some of them have fire suppression system, we let them use our kitchen without any training whatsoever, or where even the pool station is for fire suppression, because there's nobody there to show them. And a building burns down, insurance is going to say, well, who was your volunteer there that was trained where the fire suppression switch is or the pool station is? If we say, oh, we'll just unlock the door, we'll have a surprise for our insurance. And that's the reason this is going. I did mention to some of the recreation that if you have like something in the afternoon yoga classes, it's always the same instructor. You can surely show them why, I guess, our inputter the responsibility, or him the responsibility of that event, because you made them aware where everything is as far as safety and everything. So this way you don't have, but anything that comes from outside your routine of regular reservations, you should have somebody there. As we're responsible for this building. You are our recs are the operators. The operators must be present and are responsible for the facility. So it's like opening your door, it says, when you're done, we're good. Well, you don't know what's going to happen during that reservation, but you have the responsibility. So that's why the insurance are really pushing, like I say, anything out of the ordinary, your bookings for the funerals, celebration of life, baby showers, all these, they're not your regular activities you got every week. That's where, yes, it is boring for volunteers. Absolutely. I did some and it's boring, but at one point we have a liability and responsibility as operators.
Yeah, this is, I mean, if you were to go to the Benson Center and rent a room there, it's going to cost you, right? And the reason it's going to cost you is because they have to have an employee there to be able to look at make sure that things are being looked after, whether or not they're right there or not, or whether they're someplace else at. Again, the part of the reason for charging rent is to offset the costs of having somebody there. What happens with volunteers is that instead of the volunteer getting paid, it goes into the coffers of the rec group so that they can build their funds for whatever programming they want to run. And again, what I feel, you know, as we've already recognized, the number of volunteers is decreasing. So actually, it's you guys who are taking on the heavier and heavier burden as time goes on, if you're not able to replace volunteers over time. But that's really what it comes down to is if we're going to charge rent, then there's a service, and part of that service is making sure that things are protected. And so that's the difficult balance. Sometimes we have to charge additional or higher rents in order to, if we wanted to hire somebody to come in part-time and cover it, maybe the rents would have to go up to be able to help support that.
I'll take one from the back.
I just want to, clarify. I think there is a little bit of training. You're right, but I think there is a little bit of training. I think it's almost walking the line between the two things. And I think sometimes it's repetitive groups as well. So really you'd need to speak a little bit more to South Stormont, maybe South Nation, to understand exactly how they do it. But I think it's worth looking into. And I hate to use like everyone loves the word liability. The other one is discretion. If you've got a bunch of people there with their 2-year-olds, I hope they're not boozing, and maybe you know them all enough that you should check on them. But
Had a 2-year-old.
yeah, you're right. I haven't. But how do you find the line of discretion? And that's really tricky. And Pierre's right. It'll fall back on you. You'll lose your liquor license. So we're all trying to find that line between liability and discretion. So but I didn't know South Stormont was the same way, but there may be a process that's around that's a little more defined. But anyway, just wanted to clarify my earlier statement.
Through the chair, with all due respect, I think this is an important discussion. However, I think this current topic is outside the scope of the agreement, as we're trying to stay focused on the agreement. So if we could, I would like to defer these type of items to 6.4 other discussion items, and we stay focused on the actual content of the agreement, if that's agreeable from council and the rec groups.
Yeah, and there's lots that We'll change, like I say, Steve made the comment, I don't know, is it an opportunity maybe where we look at the rental cost to accommodate some kind of a salary for somebody then that might be, like I mentioned, semi-retired, that will say, hey, you know what, I'm interested, I'll take on that, and not really just expect him to go sit there all day. But I don't know, again, the whole big picture of how costs are. And I mean, if we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot, but
Through the chair, as soon as a volunteer is paid, he's not a volunteer anymore. So just be careful with this, because then we're not covered underneath WSIB. We're not covered for all these. Say something would happen because now a volunteer that's paid.
who brought him in?
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
that's
no,
the
I
way
understand.
It goes. So be careful when you do this. You might as well hire a contractor with a separate contract that I'm going to charge you so much, but they're covered, right? Because they fall into a township employee and not a volunteer. So we just got to be careful when it comes to, if I can bring back, Mr. Mayor, for recreation, anything in capital that you wanted to see? I know there was a comment made about the $5,000 or less before for capital projects.
I'll comment on that. If I remember right, when that was put in, it was partly to help offset the costs, because again, what was originally envisioned was moving from $15,000 per group to the new ARC agreement, which ended up taking us up from about $100 and something thousand, well, 200,000 if you include the arena, up to about 400,000. And then it's continuing to escalate there. So part of the rationale for putting the $5,000 cap on that, to say that the volunteers would look after that, that was a discussion at the time with the volunteers to say, you know what, we still have an important role to play in making sure that this is sustainable. So again, I get the fact that capital expenditures add to the life of the building, but actually most of the buildings are there because of the work of volunteers in the first place, right? The fundraising that's gone in, the grant applications that have gone in. So the question is not really about the $5,000. It's if something under $5,000 now starts to break, which we saw a water heater break, we see HVAC units going down, where does the money come from? Because if it's not coming from the activities going on that are through the programming and stuff like that from the rec group, then ultimately, if we're saying the municipal, I always don't like this, and you guys hear me say this at the rec at the ARC meetings, the municipality has no money. It's your neighbors, right? It's the taxpayers. So the taxpayers are already paying twice as much as what they did 5 years ago. If we're saying that we want to get rid of the $5,000 on that, that's going to be now probably $900 to $1 million. So we're now increasing the burden on the taxpayers. So my question is, what's sustainable, right? Where can the money come from? Because I kind of agree. It would be a lot simpler just to say anything that's capital, anything that's a fixture like a water heater, have the municipality pay for it. But just realize when you say that, you're saying, have my neighbors pay for it, even the guys who can't afford to. That's my biggest concern, is when I sit at the council table during budget time, it's that group of people that I look at. Whereas if we were the provincial government or the federal government, we could tax based on income, but we don't. We have to tax everybody equally based on the value of their property. So there's no, other than doing fundraising or you guys doing actual service, that's the only way you can isolate groups of people who can afford to pitch in, is by doing that. The only way that we can make a decision is we say everybody's taxes go up, not just you guys who have a bit more money. So anyhow, that's my thinking.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kim.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you can hear me?
Yeah.
In all fairness, if these wonderful volunteer groups were not there, we would own those assets. In all fairness, again, we're following our capital asset policy as far as thresholds go for improvements and betterments. So I don't think we should have two different standards for the municipality. So I'm just putting it out there. Council may not be in agreement with me, but to have one solid policy that meets all the thresholds I think it's fair and equitable across the board. And in the, at the end of the day, we own those assets and we have to thank those volunteers so very, very much for taking care of those. On another note, I just want to give you some kind of standards, because North Stormont is very, very, very lucky to have what they have. I worked for the city of Red Deer. It's a population of 100,000. We had 2 arenas. We had 4 recreation facilities and 2 parks with wonderful ball diamonds. North Stormont is a gold mine with what they offer their citizens. So the volunteers are doing absolutely great, but I think we need to follow the procurement policy and the asset management and follow the same standards that we have for our other facilities as far as thresholds for betterments. That's my thoughts.
So I kind of see where your thought is, but to elaborate on that, so it's not just, so I'll just give you a big overview of our township, 4 fire halls. So we have more or equal vehicles to the city of Cornwall. We're 8,000 people. We've got 6 community centers. The township of Russell, which if you look at their population, okay, have 2, 1 in Embrun is not even being used. So there, you look at the aspect of just those 2 entities. You look at everything when it comes to our water and sewer. So we've got 3 towns, Moose Creek, Chrysler, and Finch, which has municipal services. Well, each town, for example, has 500 people to maintain a water tower and the lagoons. So where, again, you don't need to go to Ottawa. If you just look at the Township of Russell, if you look at Embrun, well, there's not 500, there's 5,000 to pay for that 1 water tower. We did upgrades or an upkeep on our water tower in Chrysler 2 years ago, and we're basically thinking we're painting it. So they had to sandblast, they had to put scaffolding right up. It came in at a quote of $1 million. And here we are looking at 500 houses to divide the bill, because we can't go outside of that perimeter. It's their system. So that's where, as a council, you got to start thinking, okay, where the hell are we getting this money? And we're trying to maintain all the services. We're trying, and that's where we're rich in volunteers. We offer, people will come and look at our, I'll use Moose Creek as a prime example. That new hall, the ball diamond, the ice rink, and the pool, municipalities would die for something like that. You go to the Chrysler, where you've got this dome that was built. You go to Finch, where now they're looking at so each community, we're trying our hardest to bring the quality of life to our residents and have the services there for them. But at the end of the day, when it comes to budget, we as Crown's trying to maintain a lower, so with all that said, I don't want to keep, but it just makes the comment to what Kim is saying. Yes, we should be looking at, but at the same time, it's just fine. That's all fine and dandy. We have to find the money. So Pierre, did you want?
Yeah, through the chair, just because if you look at operating and capital budget and agreement, it contradicts itself. And that's why we want something clear, either like if you look into plumbing, it says regular maintenance operation, including but not limited to the purchase of new water heater, sinks and all this. But if you go to capital, it says the replacement of water heaters. So components of building include but not limited to installation of window, a new and replacement of furnace, air conditioning units. And one section where it says operation, it's kind of in there that it's the responsibility to purchase a new water heater or a new furnace here, but it's also in the capital. So if council and recreation can justify which way we're going to go, is this be considered capital projects or this falls in operation? Because right now, each contradicts itself. One says it's recreation responsibility and it's not clear, and then the capital, anything over 5,000, like if we change a hot water tank, it could be 3,000, but it's still a capital project. It's not an operation. And this, if we can clear this up, because this is what I think is a lot of controversy when it comes to recreation as far who pays for what. Thank you.
I just wanted to float an idea and see what the reaction is here, because I agree with you that it would be a lot simpler. And I kind of start to think of it more as a landlord and tenant type situation where the landlord looks after the building, looks after the water heater, looks after everything. But quite often when you're in a building, you're responsible for your own utilities. So if we're trying to balance the budget on this one, is there, right now, I think it's carte blanche where the municipality has said that they'll look after all utilities and stuff like that. Is there a potential to ratchet back on that? Whereas the groups take ownership of a portion of their utilities. What I like about that idea as well is that, you know, if I was living in a house and somebody else was paying my utilities, I may not be as concerned about closing a window in the middle of a winter when the furnace is running. But if I'm paying my own utilities, and it just kind of reinforces the behavior there. So I don't know if there's an appetite to kind of rebalance that a little bit to say, let's clean up, to Pierre's point, let's clean this up in turn so that we're not saying, you know what, on this piece of equipment, you know, you're going to pay this share, et cetera. Municipality, keep it clean from a utility or from a fixture perspective, but then maybe to help offset that, what's the thought on the rec groups taking a bigger ownership of the utilities?
I'll speak my opinion because I have a different opinion than the mayor. So maybe I'm going to, so no, the reason back in the day, that's what it was, where people were, here's 15,000. And then there was many of the recs, it wasn't even covering. So here we were saying to our volunteers, here, you guys go and make a fundraise so that you can turn the lights on. What we want to fundraise for is to offer services and to offer something to not just, and that's where the time it came where let's take care of, but it's everything else that comes in where we get the fridge. You're operating your kitchen. If the fridge goes, that's where, well, get yourself another fridge. That's not part of our, and it's not just a fridge, you're looking at your bar, you're looking at, that's for you guys to operate, you need the bar. For us to have a building, turn the lights on, put the heat on, the bar has nothing to do for us. The revenues are yours to spend. So that's where I see the maintenance and occupying and taking ownership. Speaking on the fact that leaving the lights on because I'm not paying for it, that's where I take, or I want you guys to take ownership and say, hey, I'm proud, this is my community center, and I'm looking at it as if it was your own house. That's where, so any further quick comments on that? So that's where it makes it hard because, you know,
Arm wrestle on that.
yeah. So it's, but again, just to go through, because I don't want to keep you here all night. And I just want to make sure in regards to the agreement, just so we can move on to the next line item, is there anything else as far as the agreement that somebody had their hands up at the back and and then it just, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I'm just that, you know, we're 7,700 people, but we're spread out.
Very much.
Bigger size of Cornwall. Cornwall has 50,000 people. Well, of course, the money doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
We all want our communities to have something to offer to where we live. I don't think it's our fault. Like if Moose Creek, Maxville, we all decided, okay, we're gonna make Finch our central point. Well, someone's gotta travel an hour, 45 minutes to have that instead of 5 minutes away from there. I think the 7,700 people it's not, it doesn't matter. We want these things to attract people to our community, not to, if we don't have them, who's to say we're down to 5,000 people? Maybe they're gonna go to Cornwall where those things are more available. So the 7,700 really doesn't come into factor.
No, I'll go one step further to say each community has its own identity, really, and they build their identity in a big way around their recreation activities, et cetera, et cetera. The only challenge with 7,700 is the money, right? $7,700 or 7,700 people paying for 6 community centers. That's where the challenge comes.
But if there's nothing there, we can say people don't stay.
Yeah. Well, we're already struggling with the decline in volunteerism. And I don't know whether you're struggling, maybe that's a question, the fact that you're declining in your volunteerism, is that also you have a decline in people actually participating on in the activities that you're doing, the events that you're doing? Or are there still just as many people, but fewer people wanting to do the work? Anyhow, it's just a question. The only other thing as well that I'll point out in here, one thing that was in the agreement is when proposing capital projects, one thing we have to, and this came up kind of with the swings in Avonmore, fantastic effort to bring the swings in and to bring all of the update the park. I think it's fabulous. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. I take my grandkids there. But one thing that we want to continue to do within this is when a new project for a new activity comes up, one thing that was asked, and I'm not sure how well we do this, is the implications to the future operating budget. So what we're basically saying is we're going to build this really new, nice thing. Who's expected to look after it into the future, right? Because are you saying that we expect the municipal public works department to look after things? Or are you saying our volunteers will look after it, make sure, you know, that that this is maintained on a regular basis? I think that's something that needs to stay in the agreement. But I don't know how often we practice that.
So I'll take one more as we move. So Ellen, if you want to.
So can, like, council decide they're going to put something in somebody's town? Is that gonna fall under the volunteers to look after? Like, you're saying to us, we need to, if we're gonna put something in, but can the same thing happen if township decides to add something to a community?
Yeah, give me an example.
It's gonna go up in Chrysler in the new
Pardon?
division.
Pardon, sorry?
The park that's gonna go up in that new subdivision in Chrysler.
Yeah, I don't even think we're there yet. And I kind of agree with you. And again, I don't necessarily, I don't think everybody on council agrees with me there, but I would almost want to, before we put something new in Chrysler, have the demand, have the next generation of volunteers from that particular area say, we need something, so that they can say, what is it that you would want? How do we partner together? But yeah, I think it absolutely needs to be a two-way street. But I don't think it should just come top down from council either. I don't think council, in my opinion, we've already got so many assets to say that council is saying, we need a new park right here without engaging the community. I wouldn't want to see that happen.
Just curious.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
Talking one way, and I just wondered.
And I think that's just because that's the way it's been built from history past, really, is the fact that almost everything that's in our municipality in the way of recreation was actually built by volunteers and maintained by volunteers.
My comments at the beginning of the meeting were kind of related to my eyes getting opened as part of the Chrysler development stuff. Like, my background is mostly in planning. So we look at a lot of stuff like, how's the road? How's the traffic going to be? Do we have enough water and sewer? Like, that's the stuff I think about. And then I was like, look at this great land by the water. Like, this is perfect. We put a dock in there and people can go, people fish there already. I'm like, this is going to be amazing. And then, you know, it was brought up to my attention about how we actually do recreation in this township. And it was, it's like, I wasn't thinking about it from that perspective. Like, I really wasn't. And I think I said that at the meeting. I said, like, I really need to learn more about what this means. So by not sitting on that committee, you're not thinking about it. I'm on the planning committee, I'm on the ag committee, I'm on the long-term care, you know, I am thinking about things, but not always that. So it's a good comment. And it's one that I've certainly learned more about in the last year than I knew before. But all that to say, like, you know, people come ready to want to build homes. People are wanting to move here probably because of all the amazing things that are here for them. We don't get to decide when that happens. You know, we don't own the land. We don't control the developers. So now they're coming. My big thing was, how do we get a sidewalk on that road? As someone who walks on the side of that road to get into town every day, taking my life in my hands, and I'm an adult. I'm not a child. I don't even have a dog, right? Like, so we all have different perspectives for how to build the community, but forcing the rec to take on something they weren't ready for, wasn't what I had intended with my comments. I thought the township, we would figure out how to do it. It showed my ignorance for sure at the time. So anyways, appreciate your comments.
Okay, so let's, do you have, how many line items are we looking at as far as the agreement that we'd like to cover? Two more? Good. Okay.
So, through the chair, we still didn't hear from recreation part side of which part of operation and capital they want to define, because right now it contradicts itself. So is it something that you want recreation to contact me directly and come up with recommendation to council how recreation proposed this, and then we can have another discussion about it? I need some clear mandate how we're gonna, because is one of the big issue is operation and capital as far as amalgamated recreation.
So maybe while we're on that, can the heads of the six, can maybe you elaborate on your thoughts on the both capital and operational? William? Or
You want to go first? Yeah, so yeah, I think for sure it has to be defined what is responsible as a volunteer group moving forward. The comments of having it switch back to the volunteers creating money to pay for utilities that are used 24 hours a day when the volunteers are only using the building certain times of the week, and it's not like it's a building that has income every day. So I really think that wouldn't be a case of working again. I was part of Moose Creek when we had the old building and had the check from the township, and it would last 3 months, and then we'd have to, all our money went to that. So I don't think that's the right route, just because there's not enough income coming in weekly or monthly to sustain the
And I wasn't suggesting 100%.
Yeah, no, for sure. At least I guess then you're saying is you would have a set amount that it would cost you monthly.
Yeah,
And you would know that that's your budget for the year, and we wouldn't have to then worry about breaking and having that slush fund as much. We'd know what our budget is annually. Yeah, and maybe it's that way where you set it as this is the cost of your rent of the building for the month, and everything else is covered by the township. Then on the other side, then there's no surprises to the volunteers either, because I know that's every meeting we have. That's right. We talked about bank accounts. Well, the reason there's money in bank accounts is because we don't know the next step of what's going to happen, right? Or what the next project is, or who's going to pay for that when it does break. So that's
William.
Yeah, I think Steve touched on quite a bit of what I was saying. I think he brings up a good point. The maintenance of the buildings is a huge burden on the volunteers, and yeah, maybe if there was the cost burden, and then there's also the time burden, right? Figuring out how we're going to do all this. If the time burden maybe wasn't on the volunteers and the cost burden was, and then you can have fun events to fundraise to pay for that. It might be something to look at. I don't really know what that would look like. As far as capital versus operating expenses and defining that more clearly, I think that's really up to council. They know what the budget looks like, and if water heaters isn't something that can be paid for by the taxpayer, then I don't really have much of another choice in a way. That's what I've got to say, I guess.
So the deal on that is a lot of times if we say, okay, we'll take it on as capital, so we're going to now be the ones to fork out what we're seeing is often it doesn't end. And now we've got 6 groups that are, so we're trying to say, okay, if we're going to do this, but now it seems like there's always something else. And it could be something quirky that's not the norm. And they're saying, oh, well, it's always easy to say township should be paying for that. So so for us to say we're paying for your heat, we're paying for your hydro, we're paying for capital on the roof, that's on us to say time to replace the roof. Everything else after that comes, but we're getting a lot of surprises that just keeps, and the biggest task that I feel I have is there's 6 of you, so we have to maintain. We can't say, oh, okay, well, if we do it once, we're doing now 6 times, because the precedent's there, and it comes a point where, like Steve mentioned, the numbers have been in the last 4 years have doubled. So it's nice, but at the end of the year when we do budget, okay, we got to find that extra revenue for not just rec, but for every department in the municipality. So to say that, it would be something I think between, again, we'll fall back the ARC to come up and make that determination and put it to a vote and say, okay, but we have to clear it up, because if it's not clear, then we're, well, Craig, if you want.
May I suggest, and I'm volunteering both the director of rec and the treasurer. So I think it would be prudent that with the treasurer's expertise, that Pierre could put together a draft trying to encompass the spirit and intent of what the rec committees have brought forward. And if we can at least get a draft and a framework to start the conversation, Pierre can push it out to the rec groups to give them a few weeks' notice so they can review it, or a month's notice so they can review it. I really want to make sure that when we modernize this, it is sustainable for at least a 3 to 5 year minimum period, just to alleviate the pressures. As they've all said, they've got limited time, and this creates more controversy and more stress for them. So is that an agreeable approach, that certainly the staff should take the responsibility to start at least the draft process, and then it can be adjusted and amended as it moves forward? Is that a fair approach? Are you okay with that, Treasurer?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that's wonderful. Me and the director can get together and we'll come up with something we can present to council that might be, like a really great point to move forward.
Good. Is that clear enough to give you direction to bring something?
Yes, council, that's clear enough. I've been voluntold.
Can we make an attempt at putting some financials on that? Because again, I'd love to be able to do everything, but if we can understand what the financial impact, like, I don't know if that's possible on if we make some changes.
Won't be able to answer that. I'm sure we can.
Through you,
Here we
Mr.
go.
Mayor. I don't know what kind of financials you want, Deputy Mayor, but it's going to change every year. So I don't want to put anything into an agreement that's kind of solidified now. That's going to change every year. So if you can please, you can email me with some direction of what you're kind of looking for. Then me and the director of recreation can maybe put something together that's palatable for council and everybody.
I guess it's just recent expenses that we can expect. Because again, the buildings aren't getting any younger. So as we continue to see things break in the future that were in the past covered, if you're making recommendations to change the agreement, are we going to be asking the taxpayers to pay more? And is that a number we can come up with or not?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if you take a look at the asset management plan, in all fairness, every municipality has more than enough things that they need to take care of that they can't possibly finance. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay.
So now moving on to the.
Yeah, so to the chair, before we move to the HST, I just want to make Amalgamated Recreation Committee aware that there's a change in budget time as far as municipal budget now. They're trying to move it forward as early as possible. So, and in our agreement at this state that we want a bank statement by the end of December, we're probably going to ask for a pre-budget of the finance around September. So we'll be able to move forward with council municipal budget, and then we'll ask for the final budget at December, like the following year, and probably the third week of January to give the final. It just this section, if we'll move it ahead, because they need to see what we need as far as infrastructure or capital projects for municipal budget.
So to add to that, the reason we are every municipality now, so basically by December, we want to meet, deliberate for our budget, pass it as early as possible in the new year. All it is for tendering when we're going for whether we're buying a new plow or going in for pavement. If you come in March, April, most of these companies have got their tender bids in, got their job so now we're coming in at the tail end, and a lot of times they'll basically want to, they say, oh, well, we'll do North Stormont, but the price will be here instead of there. So if we can get that done, Kim has been made aware that December. So the fact that we want to do December versus the spring, we now request the numbers to be in prior to that. So that will be something coming for this year. So that's
Another thing that we'll be adding to the agreement is the grant application procedure that we shared with every recreation. Are we going to proceed in the future for applying for capital or operational grants? There's a procedure now in place, so it's even distributed, and we got time and timelines on this procedure to give us time to apply for grants and not at the last minute. Therefore, we can have a stronger application.
so.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, to go forward, like October is probably a good time because we put our budgets together, we get our operating together and then move forward. And the ideal plan, I think it worked well this year. Try to get the budget early to council in December so they have it as their Christmas gift. And then we go early in January to approve it. And then we can get our tenders out early and stuff like that. So getting these agreements on board with that same timeline, I think it's fantastic.
So with that said, Kim, if you could look at your timeline that you're going, possibly having emails sent to all recs in writing, so that way you have you're been made aware and gives you a timeline and it's not just a verbal. So Pierre, maybe it's something sooner than later, just to identify what we'll be requesting in, as she mentioned, in October versus the end of the year. So.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll send it to all the rec groups along with the department heads.
Perfect. Thank you. So as far as going through the agreement, are we, like, there's still discussions that can be had. I think we're just trying to get as much in as possible. Pierre, did you have any last?
Yes, through the chair, what we'll do, I'll take what we discussed tonight and send a draft to Amalgamated Recreation to go over and see if we didn't miss anything. And then me and the treasurer will sit down and propose a plan, a recommendation, we should be moving forward. If you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, I think if the treasurer would like to speak on the update of HST for some recreation, they're not.
So we will just,
that's our last item on the agenda.
On 6.3, so we do have the HST reporting. It mentions responsibilities, and also we can go over some of the grant application procedures that could be brought up before we adjourn this meeting. So I'll leave it then to Kim, if you can give us some insight on the HST.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The municipality has actually 7 GST HST accounts. The business number and RT001 is ours. It's HST, payroll, things like that. Found out today RR02 is Chrysler and it is accessible and active. RR03 is Moose Creek. It apparently is not active. 4 is Monkland. It's closed. 5 is Avonmore. It's active. 6 and 7. 6 is Berwick, 7 is Finch. They're open, but they're not active. So the issue at hand is they can have access if they have revenues over 30,000. If they don't qualify. If they do, we can give them an access to these accounts so they can have a rebate to HST GST. If they don't earn over 30,000, they do not qualify. So some may, some may not. There's access codes. So it's under our business account and they have access codes that they have to follow to file. What I find ridiculous, and I've had it with CRA, but anyways, everything attached to the CRA account is attached to my SIN number. So I own North Stormont, which is ridiculous.
That just solved the whole problem.
We got lots of money now for recreation.
So my personal CRA stuff, my business one is the Township of North Stormont, and I have all this, and I have access codes, and this is really ridiculous. But anyways, the problem that happens with all these different associations being attached, but I have their access codes, which is fine, is that if someone does not apply on the time they're supposed to apply, and they can apply, and they don't again, and they don't again. All of the accounts associated with that business number are locked. So in, I think it was March or April last year, all of the accounts were locked. All of them. Because one account did not apply on time. So then I have the other associations that are basically penalized for not getting their rebate back. We were penalized at one point $146,000 because one of the other rec associations did not apply on time.
I'll interject. When you say apply, are you talking about filing your HST? Is that what you're using the word apply? It sounds like we're applying for
yes, filing. So
filing. Okay.
Yeah. So if you have your HST from January 1st to January 31st, you have to, file it in February. February, you file in March. It's not really a hard process, but two associations and ourselves got held up. 146,000, 140, whatever it was. That's a lot of money for us to be out of pocket. The two rec associations, they're not so rich. That's a lot of money for them to be out. So it's not new. It's happened in the past. So honestly, I would like something to put in the agreement that if you cannot file your HST on time and anyone gets penalized for that, you're off. This has been going on for one association for about 5 years. And to have other associations be put out when they can't really afford it, I'm like, that's a lot of money to them. But for us, that's a lot of money for us. And I don't think that's fair. So I would like something to put in the agreement that says, if you cause any hardship to the others because you fail to file, you're off. And then what that association will have to do is they will have some member have to put their social insurance number and try to get that status. I'm not trying to be mean, but it's a habit. I'm tired of it. We're tired of it. And it's not fair to the other rec facilities that do their diligence.
So if I can add to that. So I understand every rec, so you probably do your HST or somebody in your committee does it. So what we're looking at is, I understand your volunteers. So, but at the same time, if you put your name forward on a committee you gotta, and I'm not asking, I don't think it's a thing where it takes weeks. It's just to get down. But when it starts affecting the other 5 committees and the township as a whole, that's when it's just, we have to, and again, it's a problem that can be fixed. We just have to make sure that it's kind of well known that it has to be taken seriously, just for the fact that you have, I should talk on this side. So for the fact that you have other committees that are tied to money. So I don't think anything else needs to be said other than if we want to maybe put something in the agreement that there is a responsibility on the recs. At the end of the year, we need to see your financials because you are part of the municipal entity. So your records we are responsible not just for the township, but whatever, if it's not done properly, we are responsible for the committees that are part of North Stormont, which is what the recs are. So Pierre, is that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
You have to understand, this is on my SIN number. So that makes it even worse. I need to be responsible for all this taking place. And so I'm responsible not only for my own, but for the township and all the other facilities that are attached. So this is not good.
And can I ask maybe quick, why is having a employee of the municipality's personal SIN number be tied to our township?
Through your mayor, through Mr. Mayor. This is the way CRA
So-
works. You have
So
to
the
have a
treasurer
director.
has, throughout every municipality is the same thing? Okay, thank you.
You have to have a director attached to, some director attached to the business. And I said it's a municipality, but I even talked to SDG counties, and the SDG county treasurer is attached to their CRA number. There's no other way to get around it. I think it's silly, but
Okay.
the point is, we need some accountability.
I think the directives are there. Here.
Through the chair, the only thing I'd like to, we discussed with the treasurer is when we re-invoice the recreation for different invoices that we receive. Some of them has different terms, some of them is yearly, some of them it's monthly. So the treasurer has recommended that we will invoice each recreation quarterly. So we'll keep track of the invoices, and then we'll invoice them quarterly instead of some that's only once a year. It makes it harder to track. Some of them, as soon as we get the invoice, we send them right away to recreation. So we'll make it in the agreement that all invoices will be sent to quarterly to every recreation.
Now, is it something that the bill can be sent to be paid, but like to make sure that the recs are aware of quarterly of what's going to be coming their way? Are they going to be aware of that, or is that going to be?
Exactly. When we
quarter
receive,
surprise?
through the chair, when we receive an invoice, the invoice will be sent to the recreation president for them to approve this invoice. And then we'll keep it in track. And then when it's time to re-invoice everybody, we'll submit the amount due along with a copy of each of these invoices that they already signed. But right now, some of them, it's 1 year, some of them it's instantly, some of them, so to be transparent around all recreation, treasurer's recommended quarterly invoicing every recreation. It just saves staff time, it saves them in making checks, they can do EFT transfers to the municipality. It's gonna be easier process, and it's gonna take a lot less staff time than when, as soon as we get invoice right now, we submit right away a request to the recreation.
Okay, thank you. So Kim, on your end, we're good with the HST reporting. You've covered your, it talks about responsibilities. Is that tied to, pardon?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm done with my HST comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're done with the grant also, because each recreation did get a copy of the grant procedure that's going to be added to the agreement.
Okay. Greg, did you want to add something?
No, I was just going to elaborate on the mayor's question. This is, the responsibilities are directly related to the new position or newer position of the director of recreation. And I'll let Pierre start the dialogue.
Sure. Well, to recreation, we have to be careful when we do work. I am representative of the township. My goal is to make sure that we're transparent with recreation and everything. I do lots of time, and I'm sure in the last 6 months, all of you received a ton of emails. And sometimes I need to apologize, but at some point, we need to be up to date. You know, policies and everything we do as far as liability policies. So, and sometimes I know you're all volunteers, but sometimes I'm waiting for weeks and weeks to get an answer, which delays me of moving forward to other things. And the perfect example is Univeris. I just got my first training this week because of delays since December of sending me your information. We asked for one year of trial, 12 months, and it'll be June or July before you're gonna have access to it. So you lost 6 months of free training or free tryouts on something, a system that'll be very handy for you. I know we all work, we all got things to do. I don't expect to receive the email the next day, but within reasonable time, when I'm waiting for a month and a half, and I have to send 2 or 3 emails to get a reply, delays everything. So then I got to put this file on the side and nothing moves. So I go to another file and nothing moves. So at one point, I needed to move forward as a director. we need a timely matter that we get response back, especially something like Universe that you guys should be taking advantage of it right now. And it'll be probably July by the time you have all access to it. Plus, I got it all, when train your volunteers, it's gonna be doing the system. So that's another nights that I gotta, where we could have put everything together and everything would have been working by now. So just be a little bit more, some of them, there's a lot of blah blah in there because there are policies and all that. But when I request if it's possible, when I request some information, because I need to advance a file, if it's possible, do in a timely manner, it'd be greatly appreciated, because right now I find it's not moving, and we're delaying a lot of our procedure that should have been in place by now. That's all I got. Thank you.
So I will add to that comment. So that was my last thing I was going to talk about. So Pierre came on board per council's appointing the position, and with regards to everything that's come up, I know I'm an older gentleman when you come to a point where it's, you know what, we've been doing it this way for X number of years and just more or less leave us alone. Those days are gone. So it's not that we want to put, but Pierre has a wealth of experience, knowledge, and if you sit down truly down and see what, at the same time, he's protecting our interest. So a lot of stuff we were not even aware. So he'll come up and say, "Oh, you don't have," and it was a big risk. So now we can identify it and see. So with the agreements, with everything coming up in the last 6 months, I understand the emails. I think we're probably more than what anybody would like, but we're trying to bring everything. Once we get the agreement, sort of everybody's kind of on board, I think it will diminish. But out of him moving his stuff, and sometimes it might be an email you get where you don't agree and you just don't answer. But if you don't agree, I'd rather if you typed it in and said, wait a minute, I don't, then disregarding and then waiting, and then I'll come up, and whether it's myself or any of council saying, hey, Pierre, where are we on this? I'm still, because there's 6 of yous and he's waiting on. So again, we're just looking at, let's work together, make the reply for whatever your thoughts are. At least he can move on it. And then, so I don't know if rest of council wants to add. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Linda, if you want to say, add to that.
May I just suggest, Pierre, if you have, like, if you need a quick turnaround, maybe just stipulate in your email, response needed by such a date. If it's less quick response, then you can give us like maybe 2 weeks to respond or to provide you with the details. Maybe by putting a timeline, it'll light a light under our butts.
Go ahead, Steve.
Just quick to add to that, most of our committees are groups of 15 to 20 people. So Pierre sends that email to 1 or 2 people. Those people then relay that message to 15 people. So sometimes it's not that we're not answering. So do you want every time you send us an email to say, yeah, got it, going through our committee, we want to vote on it, so that it's not, because I think at the end of the day, being a president, I'm not here to make decisions for my whole community. I'm here to be between you guys, us, and the committee, and and our town. So I don't want to be making those decisions in 2 days because Pierre wants that answer in 2 days, because I want 15 people out of my 20 to answer first, right? So sometimes it's not just that we're not answering, it's that we're going through our due diligence on our side to make sure that it's transparent to our committee, that when stuff comes back to the committee table, that they're not like, well, that's stupid, we didn't agree to that, right? And those are the people that are building our communities. So at the end of the day, you want all your volunteers to have a say in what goes on through ARC, through Township, these meetings, right? Yes, everyone, but at the end of the day, I think that sometimes is the time frame, no different than when we send an email to Pierre and he has to come back to you guys and we wait for an answer for 3 weeks, a month sometimes.
Which is a fair comment. Like that's,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's realistic to everybody, right? We all have kind of where we have to go through the train of thought for everything.
But on the same note, I'll use an example. He turns around and sends an email, I need the financial by this. The financial is the treasurer of the.
Mhm. Yeah,
so
no, for sure.
That's where,
Yep.
and it could go a month and we're still, oh, no, we haven't received anything. That's the kind of stuff that which makes it hard because the financial is not Pierre asking for it. It's Kim behind you that is saying, hey, I need to get ready for budget. So so yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. And I agree, some certainly to reply and say, we got a meeting only next, in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and reply that way and say, I will run it by council. We'll have an answer for you. But certain other things, it's just to try to keep moving. So. Oh, that's one. So is there any, oh, I see. Are you just waving goodbye, Kim, or?
No, I'm not. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Please, I want the Recreation Association and anyone else to feel free to send me an email or call me or whatever, because if you need financial information, I am more than happy to present it to you. And sometimes, I mean, if you go through another avenue like Pierre, no offense, Pierre, but he's not going to have the information you need. So please feel free.
Perfect. Thank you. I've got a little bit more on my list, but is there anything in regards to the email? Okay, so moving on to, where did that paper go? Right here. Okay. Moving on to grants. So Pierre has been retained as our director. There's a lot of times that when it comes to applying for grants, sometimes like, hey, yeah, well, that's what we'd like. Every community has different mindset on what they would like, what they would. So you look at Finch now that their surface that they built, they want to add to it, do this walking park. They got the summer. Everybody, what the way it works is whatever the expectation is. And I'll use Berwick as an example. So the ball diamond and the dugouts, which are, it's something, hey, you know what? We'd like new dugouts. What we would like to do, or what we need to do, Pierre cannot run everybody just on vision of what we would like. So it's more on the committee. You have all kinds of resources on as your volunteers. One guy might be in the construction aspect one. So it's to get, hey, we need to build a dugout. What are we looking at? And get a plan, get some cost, and then submit something where, okay, we've got, then from there, Pierre can help you to finalize. He's got lots of experience doing some grants application, but it's just to come up and say, oh, here's the grant. So the thing is, the timeline of that is another factor where if the grant opportunity is to there, if we don't get the information on time, it's lost. So it's stuff that we have been, touch wood, we have been very successful in grants throughout the whole municipality. And I want to keep that going. For a while, when I first got on, every grant opportunity was nay. So we never got anything. Then it kind of, in the last, I'd say 4 years, we've really kind of picked up speed and we've managed to secure tons of, at the campaign during our last election, I think we're at 2.2 million of grants. And then we've had more since then. So it's just, you know, to keep that going. So the timeline is very important. So if there's something, he sees them, he might send it out to the recs. But if you wait till the last minute, it doesn't get. So the timeline is a big thing. And also last is if you commit for a big one and you've got, so the ARC are saying, okay, well, we'll allow this project to go. But at the end of the day, if you turn around at the end and not submit, then you took somebody's opportunity else that we're leaving you the opportunity to do it. But if you're not going to do it, they could have jumped on it. So it's just to work together. Any opportunities that we can get is money in our pocket and more benefit to the township. I don't know if that's clear or not. If any of you want to add to that, maybe I'm missing something. Is it pretty straightforward, or Craig or Pierre?
Through the chair, I believe the grant process that Pierre had generated was vetted through and distributed, and I believe there's buy-in from all of the rec groups as far as the.
As far as nobody gave me feedback yet.
So I believe that's fairly stable.
Okay, so that leaves us to last item 6.4 with any other discussion items that maybe was not on the agenda, was not discussed, and somebody wants to bring up, whether it's the panel at the front or the people sitting at the back? Is there anything that is bugging you and will prevent you from having a good night's sleep that you want to get off your chest? And I'm seeing,
Just one that we've kind of been working on for the past year is being able to obtain lottery license. We've worked through trying to have a constitution and whatever's needed, and it just kind of keeps rolling around. And I know that pretty much everyone sitting here, a huge amount of money that we're looking for comes from lottery licenses. So I don't know if there's a way that as a ARC can figure out how to get lottery licenses as a group instead of each one having to do a whole bunch of behind the scenes work to be able to get lottery license. So that's just something that as an ARC group, instead of 6 different individual towns having the capability of getting lottery licenses each, maybe make it that we're all able to do it through the ARC. That because I guarantee every single one of our communities is losing money every month on not being able to have a lottery license for simple nights where we can have 50-50 to us having a duck race. And, you know, like there's a lot of opportunity there with lottery license. Draws for large, you know, with 4-wheeler draw and stuff we did when we had the building being built, right? So.
And through the chair, I'll keep this high level, and I know Leanne has had a lot of dialogue with the groups individually. We did host the AGCO working symposium, I suppose you would call it. Just so not just our organizations, but the organizations in Eastern Ontario in general would understand the challenges, because again, this is not the deputy clerk or the municipal regulations. We are administering provincial regulations, and in the past, they were not adhered to as they should be. There is risk and liability when you do not. So Leanne has been doing a wonderful job trying to administer that and trying to work within the confines of the regulations and still provide support to our rec groups. She'll continue to do that. And again, I'm not sure if there's an approach where we can do it as a group. I don't believe so. I believe it has to be individual, and it's not as simple. And I think all of you are aware of the complexities working within the AGCO regs. So I'm not sure if you want to add anything, Leanne?
Through the chair. So yes, there are challenges when the recreation groups are an arm of the municipality. That's where the challenge is, because you have to be a separate entity. And there's a lot of the lottery funds that are raised that cannot be used for items that you want to use it for. I know the only group currently right now out of rec that I'm issuing license to is Chrysler, but they have gone a different avenue where they have a registered number. So they are able to get the licenses. So the groups have to be completely separate from the municipality. Okay, so it is a challenge. I can certainly work with your group. I do encourage you to listen to, we have the recording of the AGCO seminar that we had. It will explain a lot of it. A lot of people didn't like the answers that were given by the province, but you know, it is their regulations. But I would love to come to an ARC meeting. I can, you know, talk about that. I can sit down with your individual groups. We can set up a time, you know, that works best for you. I can, you know, certainly help you out the best I can. We can't write that constitution for you, and we have to follow within those regulations. But I'm certainly there to try and help you and work through everything that we can.
And if I can just add one more thing, and Steve, we understand the frustrations of the rec groups. We want to champion what the rec groups are trying to do. We understand how important these monies that you generate from lotteries is. We have tried to be the sounding board and express or provide the AGCO contacts with the unique circumstances of North Stormont, because I think we're the only township that I'm aware of that operates in this kind of silo. So it is very unique. We haven't had a lot of uptake. We were looking for some flexibility. We haven't received that yet, so we are trying to work within the confines of those regulations at this time.
And if I don't know how many of you were at that session that was held in Moose Creek, I was there, and to be like, we're following, or I should say Leanne is following. So people are kind of going, oh yeah, that lady at the townships. Well, it's not Leanne. But at the same time, I was at the thing, and there's a lot of areas where I do not agree with the provincial policy that's in place. I find it puts the criminal and the average good community guy in the same box.
Yeah.
And that's what they seem to have to try to identify. Somebody that's doing a lottery under a criminal act where he's basically stealing from is one thing. Somebody that's just doing something for the community to raise a fund, and that's the part that's hard, but there's no fine line to divide that.
And my comment's not towards us. It's more, should we be maybe taking Chrysler and mimicking and mirroring it for the rest of us then?
And when
right, if it works for Chrysler, why can't we mirror it for everybody else and build it that way instead of trying to recreate something that doesn't work right now? And we know Chrysler's works, their parameters work. So if that's the way we have to have it, and have the Y in the road that we're over here to do lottery license and the committee stays here, then I think that's probably the avenue to take this, instead of trying to recreate where we still can do it with our constitution of the rec association.
So possibly looking at the neighbors.
Like, well, that's it. It's already something that's in process now. So we should be able to mirror that for the rest of the committees if it's working, right? So.
Again, so one good discussion. Any further discussion before the adjournment? Go ahead there at the back.
Just obviously expenses are growing. Is there a chance that, centers could be reduced at any point?
What can be reduced?
Like centers closed?
That has not been, like I say, in discussion. You usually need, a big, like Monkland went through it, where there's so if you've got a growing entity that kind of seems like, I say, will work, but it just comes a point where if you're two members and it's not, then it comes. Yeah.
This building, so I feel like we might be on the chopping block first. Just, it's hard to keep that momentum going if, I think the team is doing a really good job trying to get it going. So it's just like, if it's gonna come in the next 2 years, then it's like, is there a point? Not that I'm gonna say we're gonna stop, but we want to do good things with the rec right now. So I'm just wondering if it was in talks, because we're looking at numbers have doubled in 4 years. We're obviously, I work in finance, there's going to be cuts.
My only comment I can say to that is, for the near future, there hasn't been discussion. But again, in a year and a half, if you want to put your name and you want to come and sit up here, because a new term of council is I can't speak for that. So right now, though, this council has not had any discussion to say, okay, do you want to add to that, Steve?
All I want to say is, I think for the 2 terms that I've been on, every council who sees a glimmer of a community wanting to make something happen, we really want to get behind you to support you and make that happen. Because Monkland especially has been on the chopping block, and it's you guys who stepped up, who prevented that happening. So I think given the fact that North Stormont lives and breathes on volunteers, I don't think any council that I've seen to date would want to see that happen. So it's really up to you guys to keep it alive, and I think you're doing a fabulous job at doing that.
Pierre and I would like to inject, because council already did have that opportunity when the last group dissolved, and when there was a revitalization of, thanks to William, of the group. Certainly council jumped on board and endorsed and supported and championed them, starting that group back up again. So certainly I'm not aware of any discussion points for closing it.
Adrian.
I'll just say the idea of having these meetings is that so that never actually comes to pass, right? The worst thing we can do is to shutter a building, because once that's done, the process to get that rebuilt or to revitalize it after the fact is next to impossible. So hopefully through meetings like this and building an agreement that's going to work for the long run will prevent that from ever being on the table.
Good. So Pierre, go ahead.
Well, as director, it's the community itself that if something happens, that they will mandate to close it. Because I'm sure once we work these agreements, we work on budget, we work together, we can keep on going for years and years. Eventually, it'll be the mandate of if you have enough volunteers to maintain your facility, if you all this, that's where this is going to come into play more than a council decision of closing a facility. The community itself will come to say, you know what, we're done. We had enough, and it happened. Thank God William came along and got his committee, but that we've seen that where a full committee dissolved within one day. Says we're all done, that's it. And that could happen to any facility. It all depends on your leader, depends on the committee. But as far as we're working as a township to make sure we stay within budget, that everybody works together, it'll be up to each community to foresee that the future of their recreation and not a council mandate that's going to foresee the future. That's my point.
Good. So with all that said, it's before we move to adjournment. So this is not the end of it. There's going to be always this ongoing stuff. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Adrian and Steve are both on the art committee. That doesn't mean that me and Allison and Chuck are not listening in. So we're getting brief. We do have the best interest in the, so anytime if there's anything, we're all there to listen, not just the fact that those two are on the committee, but I think if you can come together, give the whole process time and give it a chance. Because I think once if Pierre gets everything in place, it's a lot of stuff will facilitate for. And again, if you can build our communities, I know Chrysler's growing, Finch has a subdivision in the work that's going to be coming very soon, which again, I think like Chrysler started out with a small John Corvinelli subdivision at 17 houses. Now you've got multiple and it's just growing. So I think if you get Finch with an infill, you've got Moose Creek that's now growing. These things are what you want to see and grow. So and build your volunteer base. So with that said, before I adjourn, I'd like to tell you the Senators are up 1-0, and let's bring the adjournment so we can go and see. So go ahead.
Be it resolved that this committee of the whole meeting adjourn at 8:22 PM, moved by Councillor Bajali, second by Councillor Shane.
Right, thank you. And all in favor? Motion is carried.